Bonjour, hi, welcome back to another episode of CanadaOne. Today we got a big show, got a lot to speak about, especially on the immigration front and the foreign aid front. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a few pieces of development that have recently come out, especially regarding immigration. The two most important, obviously, being over the past week, Donald Trump made the statement where he would, quote, staple a green card to any university graduate in the United States. On the Canadian side, Pierre Poilievre doing a TV interview with a French media outlet, TVA, during his overall broader campaign in Quebec in order to shore up support from a province which will not likely be voting conservative this next election, as they will likely be voting for their own provincially nominated candidate for the Bloc Québécois, which is it's the only Canadian federal party which's stated goal is just to support Quebec and Quebec's advancement. They're not there to win the election. They're not there to do anything else. They're only there to become an opposition to support Quebec, which is very odd in terms of Canadian politics, but it makes sense when you have a people who are majority French-speaking, who are a little bit more culturally different than the rest of Canada, who have a very long history in terms of colonialization with the French and with the English. Well, that's a different story. The point is that the Conservative Party, through Pierre Poilievre, has been extremely hesitant to make any statements regarding decreasing levels of legal, temporary immigration. This statement is actually the first statement he's made over the 2-year-long campaign he's been doing to rally up support, which has been working, to be fair. This is the first time he's spoken about lowering immigration. He goes, quote, immigration will be, especially temporary immigration, will be much lower. That's all he said. He said it's impossible to bring in 1.2 million people while building 200,000 houses. That is all he said. And this made a lot of people happy. This made a lot of people who were like, well, I didn't know if I wanted to vote conservative because stance on immigration seems to be basically the same as the Liberals, which is a fair statement to make. The fact that he's saying that it'll be much lower it's nothing. These are just words. What should be of interest is that several other times he stated that he's actually wanted to help immigration. He's not there to reduce immigration. He's not the anti-immigration party. The only anti-immigration party is the People's Party of Canada, to be fair. And that's not even anti-immigrant. That still wants to bring in 150,000 a year. And I'll get into the new party news in a second, but Pierre Poilievre, he's been very hesitant to talk about immigration. And why is that? Well, I believe that they don't have a real plan on immigration. They don't actually want to reduce immigration that much. Because as of the more big, business-oriented party, what favors businesses? More immigration favors businesses. When you have 100 international students lining up at a Tim Hortons for a job fair, do you think that'll push wages up? No, it won't. The only people that profit from higher immigration levels are consultant firms who are there to facilitate the immigration process. Big business, because they can bring in a bunch of cheap labor and not have to pay for actual Canadian labor, which is more expensive. That's why people are moving to Canada. But these people who are coming in will obviously take a lower salary. It's very naive to say, well, look, we got a minimum wage. And even putting aside the people being paid under the table, which is massively happening. Remember, we have over 500,000 illegals in Canada. Think about that. Putting even aside the fact that people are getting paid less than minimum wage, they're being put in exploitive situations where maybe they're put in unsafe situations. They're working for construction, they're getting paid under the table, they're getting paid less. Oh, you want to keep your visa? You're giving us half your salary type situation. But even ignoring that, you look at all these fast food companies, and what do they get? They get massive amounts of people coming in. They don't have to pay them more. They don't have to give them more benefits. To say that fast food can't be good jobs is actually wrong. In a scenario where there's less immigration, the labor market is much tighter, and these companies are forced to pay higher wages, they will. Not only will they pay higher wages, they'll give dental care, they'll give eye care. I know people who work at a Tim Hortons who get paid $17, $18 an hour, which whatever, is not great, but again, this is in a time when mass migration is literally happening. They're getting dental care, they're getting eye care, they're getting massage care or whatever, therapeutic care, all paid by the company. Tim Hortons, by the way, a fast food company. So to say that these companies won't pay more money to employees, or to say that they won't give more benefits to employees, is simply not true. That's just a lie that's been propagated by the media to convince us that we need immigration because no Canadian wants to fill these unskilled, low-paid jobs. They're unskilled and low-paid partly due to the fact that there's a revolving door where they can just bring in millions of people. And that 100% pushes down wages. Do not lie to me and say that the wages aren't being pushed down, because they are. So going back to Pierre, this is what will likely happen. He's obviously pandering to the group of more far, I don't want to say far right, which is because it's a pretty basic policy platform to lower immigration. But he's more pandering to the more right-wing, maybe more conservative-leaning people who would likely have voted for the People's Party on the immigration problem. So this statement is meant to not really rally or anger the left. It's not really there to make the liberal voters, I was going to vote conservative and now I got to vote liberal because of that. He's not saying something that's so controversial that he'll lose a lot of the immigrant vote, because that's becoming a larger and larger portion of the actual Conservative Party's vote. And do you not see the problem? You bring in more people because you don't want to anger part of your base, which is immigrant based, and again, who doesn't see themselves as Canadian. When a party says we're going to lower immigration, or we're the party against immigration, why are supposedly integrated foreigners in Canada getting angry at such parties? Because they still see themselves as foreigners. They don't see themselves as Canadians. They don't see themselves as part of broader Canadian society or Canadian people. They see themselves, I'm Indian. I'm actually Chinese. I'm Pakistani, Iranian, whatever it is. What Canada needs is no immigration, and we need deportation. That is the only solution to fix almost all the issues in Canada. Lower immigration would fix healthcare. It would fix housing. It would fix unemployment. It would fix underemployment and even low wages. It would fix productivity. It would fix the cultural issues that are happening. The loss of our cultural identity, especially in provinces like Quebec, which have been fighting for their cultural identity for the past 5 decades. So massively reducing immigration would solve several issues that we're facing in Canada. And Pierre Poilievre is not the solution. He actually wants to streamline the immigration process. He wants to make it easier for people to come in, bring their families, and then get a job in Canada as a foreigner. Which, guess who loves it? The big companies, because then they don't have to pay Canadian wages. Quote, as Prime Minister, I'll I'll remove gatekeepers to allow faster immigration and allow newcomers to work in professions for which they are trained with bigger inflation-proof paychecks. How does that even make sense? How are you going to have higher inflation-proof paychecks while bringing in massive amounts of foreigners? Oh, I know how. Because what he's referencing is that the immigrants themselves will have higher paychecks because you're working on a farm in India. You're working on, you're working nothing. You're working as a slave in China. You come over here, oh, minimum wage. Holy shit, we're rich. He's also made other statements when he was at some Sikh rally, because this is what they like to do. This is what the Conservative Party has been really good at doing, is pandering to every single minority intersectional group in Canada, especially the immigrant groups. So he was at some Sikh rally. He was at some Filipino rally. I thought I thought the Conservatives were the Canadian Party. And it just goes to show that, as foreign-born people grow in terms of their share of the population, the lie that we've been told that they're integrating becomes more and more apparent. Why does he need to pander to all these different immigrant groups if they were all integrated and becoming Canadian? I thought that was the whole point. I thought we can bring them in, they'll integrate, and they'll be Canadian, and then they'll just be like you. The demographics won't change, the culture won't change. Nothing will change because they'll just integrate and become Canadian. Which, yes, some of them are doing. But when you have 1 million people coming in, that's not happening. It's not happening. Again, I just want to reiterate this because we've said this before, but if America brought in this many migrants or immigrants every year, it would be closer to 12 million a year. Is America letting in 12 million a year? No. America's complaining about the 3 million illegals that are coming in. So if they're complaining about that, and that's a big topic, a big priority issue, imagine what it is in Canada. And the fact that the largest opposition party and the party that will win a majority in the next election has said next to nothing on immigration, on reducing immigration. In fact, he's had more statements saying that he supports more immigration. At this Sikh rally, where he's literally wearing a turban, you're telling me this isn't pandering? He's asked by one of the, group organizers or whatever. A lot of people say that, and again, in the thickest accent ever, again, another immigrant that's not integrated, but he goes, well, a lot of people say the Conservative parties are the parties that's not for immigrants. And Pierre literally goes, no, what? Who says that? He goes, quote, we will make it faster to unite families and to bring people to fill jobs. I thought you wanted to, quote, have immigration much lower. He says he's not anti-immigrant. He wants to support immigration and to fix the system broken by Justin Trudeau. Oh, so you don't want to stop it. You just want to make it easier. You just want to reform the system. Okay, make it more merit-based, but still bring in 500,000. Why not 1 million? Why not 2 million? Why not just get rid of all the Canadians and make it India? And again, people will say, oh, that's racist. You're just xenophobic. Countries exist for a reason, right? When people come to Canada, they come to Canada because it's Canadian, because it has its own identity, it has its own culture, its own values, right? And I'm speaking as a tourist, let's say, for this example. When people come to India, they don't want to go to all the stores and see I said India, Canada. They don't want it to be India. They don't want it to be China. They want it to be Canadian. They want it to be Canada. It's very simple. I want Canada to be for Canadians. That's it. But what Canada fundamentally needs is a moratorium, a complete ban on immigration for probably the next 10 years. And also the largest deportation plan in Canadian history where we get rid of the 500,000 illegals. Because there are such things as illegals. It's called illegal for a reason. You broke the law to be here. You overstayed your visa. You didn't follow the rules. You crossed the border illegally. And now everyone is saying that, well, it should be only legal immigrants. No, it should be zero immigrants. I want nobody else here. And that's not even to say that like, oh, well, I bet you want European immigrants only. No, I want no immigrants because we know why they're bringing in the immigrants. It's very simple why Justin Trudeau's mass importing these people. It's because they'll all vote left-leaning. All the immigrants that come in will vote liberal. That's just a fact. And even if we brought in European immigrants, they'd all vote liberal. So to say that like, oh, you only want it on a ethno basis, right? You only want an ethno state. No, because we have to live with the reality of what we're given. But the fact that, no matter what type of immigrant we bring in, they'll vote liberal, first of all. And then also they'll change the demographics on a cultural basis and on a crime basis and on an economic basis. There's massive changes. Again, it's very naive to say that no changes will be happening when we import all these people. Of course there'll be changes. Of course there'll be drastic changes to the economy, to the culture, to the people, to the demographics. And then once they get here, for the first generation at least, they'll outbirth us because we've been hit with a bunch of propaganda. We've been hit with, the reason why there's not a fertility crisis, but at least there's no children being made is because, well, do those countries have large access to contraceptives? Are a lot of those women being educated? No. But once they come here, at least for the first generation, sure, they'll outbirth us. But then by the second and third generation, their birth rate's going down. Let's say, even as a compromise, no immigrant above the age of 40 should be coming to Canada because I thought the story was, oh, there's too many, the demographic problems, we need young people to pay for the old people, right? Which already says we need pension reform, but it's neither here nor there. But the fact that old people are coming to Canada from India, from China, from the Middle East or whatever, that defeats your whole argument. Even the weakest argument that they have where it's like, oh, we need to fix the demographics because we don't want to look like Japan, right? Which has been the safest, the most peaceful, the least disruptive country literally in existence. Why? Because they take in no foreigners, and the foreigners they do take in end up causing literally all the crime. They end up massively changing the demographics. They change because they don't understand the culture. They don't understand what they're doing. But to say that, like, okay, we need to fix the demographics. Okay, sure. Oh, but let's bring in 65-year-old truck drivers. Let's bring in 50-year-old nurses. I thought the whole point was to bring in young people to pay for the old people. So why don't they just ban everyone over 40 shouldn't be allowed? Even everyone over 35 maybe. But again, I want zero. That's what I want. Zero. And it's not on a race basis. It's on a basis that we've taken in so many. For the past decade before Justin Trudeau, the average was 300,000 immigrants a year. 250, 300,000 a year. It's 3 million, by the way, over a decade before Justin Trudeau. Then he comes in, and then over his tenure, brings in millions more. And again, that's permanent. I'm not even talking about the temporaries. So this idea that we need to keep bringing in more and that we haven't brought in enough is completely false. We've brought in too many already. These people are already not integrating. So why should we bring in more? Justin Trudeau is not your solution. Pierre Poilievre is definitely not the solution you want because he won't do anything. Sure, he can say some few nice words and he will probably, to be fair, he will probably slightly reduce it. True. That is probably 100% true. Maybe from 550,000, he'll reduce it to 400,000. But at least he'll be building more houses. We want to tie immigration to housing. The problem isn't that we're not building enough houses. It's that we're bringing in too many people. Because here's the issue, right? in order to build more houses, right, there needs to be more demand. There's definitely demand. But that demand is definitely contingent on immigration. Because if there was no immigration and we were building 200,000 houses a year, we'd be perfectly fine. Because if you look at our demographics trends, it's been declining. Our birth rates have been massively declining. So it stands to reason that without immigration, building 200,000 houses a year would be perfectly acceptable. In fact, it would probably decrease housing prices. But then you have large corporations with including the pension plans, which invest in real estate and are, looking at their returns and needing housing prices to go up. You've got all these retirees, which also need housing prices to go up because everyone's investing in real estate. So you're looking at all these things. What's the only thing that'll keep real estate prices going up? Immigration. So you build more houses, you have much more urban sprawl. You have much more, destruction of the natural environment. You have more monotonous, just monotone housing all around. You've got suburbia that keeps sprawling. You've got the destruction of the environment. And then you've got the destruction of the cities and the people who've been living there for generations because you want to have housing prices go up and also have more people and also push down wages and also make big businesses more money. That's the problem with immigration. Now, looking at America, this whole Trump thing, which everyone's cheering on, well, it's just meritocracy at its finest. If you graduate as a doctor, why shouldn't you get a green card? Which, by the way, a green card is just permanent residency. It doesn't mean you're a citizen. It's just PR like in Canada. So getting a green card, if you're a doctor, why not get a green card? That makes sense, but that's not what he's talking about. Trump has said that he wants to give every university graduate, including junior colleges, including 2-year degrees, green cards. If you graduate, you should get a green card stapled. There's 1 million foreign university students in America right now, which, that seems quite low compared to Canada, huh? But again, and it's all these people. And again, who do you think is funding all of these things? It's Silicon Valley because they want to replace the Americans that they have to pay massive wages to for, let's say, the same skilled Chinese or Indian immigrants at half the salary. Again, it's all big businesses. And it just goes to show that none of our countries are actually run by these democratically elected, people. It's just run by big business. And that's why we need to take back the sovereignty of our nations. We need to take back the sovereignty of Canada, and America needs to do the same. We have the same struggle. So, obviously what's going to happen is that people are going to go to these fake colleges. They're going to have diploma mills, just like we have in Canada. They're going to go to diploma mills. They're going to go to these, the easiest degrees you could possibly get. Let me ask you this. Why should someone with a liberal arts degree or a communications major get a green card in America? What are you saying? Those people are on the same side as someone who gets a PhD or gets becomes a doctor or a surgeon? Are you telling me those people are on the same level? And then obviously what's going to happen is that it'll get massively exploited by consulting firms, just like what we have in Canada. What America's going to be doing is what we've been doing in Canada and we see the problems. We see how bad it's getting. We see that these people come in, they go through diploma mills, they work on minimum wage jobs that push down the wages for the actual native Canadians. And I mean native in terms of the Canadians that have lived here for generations. Also including the actual natives, the indigenous people. And we see the problems. They cause mass demographic change. They do cause more crime. And the fact that they say that, they're not causing more crimes is such it's such an outrageous statement. Why do you think when all the cars get stolen, they get shipped to the Middle East? You think white Canadians just have Middle Eastern contacts? No, it's these people who come in from the Middle East, cause crime, send them to their connects in the Middle East to sell the cars. Not only that, you've got all these crime gangs from South America which have come in. Again, it's all the immigration. So America's going to be doing what we've been doing. And by the way, this idea that Trump magically had for a green card for Hillary Clinton literally said the exact same thing. this rhetoric has been stated for decades now, and it's been pushed by, obviously, the big businesses because they want to have high-skilled, low-wage employees in America. What will happen? It'll lead to lower productivity, just like we see in Canada, lower productivity. It'll see to stagnated wages, just like in Canada. It'll see to, so, again, we want to talk about, immigration isn't a big issue. It is in fact the biggest issue. So you want to talk about, think about it. In a recession, why should we have immigration? Right? If nobody can get jobs, immigration should already be zero. But that's neither here nor there. Looking at Trump, why is he doing this? Well, we know because Silicon Valley has now been one of his biggest backers. He's been getting millions and millions of dollars for his campaigns on immigration. And I thought Trump, I definitely supported Trump, and to a certain extent I still do, but Trump right now has become essentially a cucked loser. He's becoming a cuck for the establishment. He's becoming a globalist, he's getting paid off by the globalist elites, and he's just doing their bidding. Originally, I thought it was build a wall, no more Mexicans, no more immigrants, right? Now it's maybe we'll build a wall. But first, we got to slow down immigration. But if you graduate from university, you get a green card. Also, let's maybe not deport all the illegals that are here. Oh, well, that's a completely different story. Might as well vote for Joe Biden. I saw a meme today where it was like, here are your American candidates. Pro-Israel, pro-immigration, Joe Biden. Trump, pro-Israel, pro-immigration. It's all the same stuff. They're both the same people. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., pro-Israel, pro-immigration. So they're all the same people. You can also even go pro-abortion. But Trump's not pro-abortion. He literally is not anti-abortion. He goes, well, let's just let the states do it. And in fact, when asked if he would bring in a federal, ban, he said literally the most moderate take ever. Well, I think it was 26 weeks or something, which is like the most moderate Democrat centrist take you could possibly have, and puts the Democrats obviously in a bad position because then they'd have to be supporting extremely late-term abortions. But again, it just goes to show Trump has lost a lot of his spark, just like how Pierre Poilievre has lost a lot of his spark. And I remember we talked about the European elections a few episodes ago. And, it was supposedly this far-right rise in America and Europe, by the way. Sorry. So you're looking at all these countries, America, Canada, Europe, and supposedly there's this far-right rise by all the parties that's going to be destroying the liberal establishment, that'll destroy, that'll fix these countries for good. And now we're seeing this completely unravel. We're seeing it with Trump. We've seen it with Pierre. And now we're seeing it with even Geert Wilders. Geert Wilders, okay, who's I believe it's for Holland, right? What's the Netherlands? He's essentially, he's now the governing party of the Netherlands, who was this massively far-right, right-wing candidate who was anti-immigrant. He literally said we should ban the Quran, we should ban Islam in the country, which, makes sense because these European countries, they're Christian countries. They're all Christian countries. Our country's a Christian country, But the freedom of religion, there should be the freedom. Anyways, he literally stated that he wants no more immigration. He wants to get rid of all the Muslims, stuff like that, right? Which maybe that's why he saw the biggest increase in support over the last election. Now, I think this came out 2 days ago, his party's trying to move away from the Great Replacement conspiracy theory. The Great Replacement theory, which was originally called the Browning theory, is that mass migration policies are being implemented in order to get rid of white people, in order to mass replace the white people of Europe, of Canada, of America, in order to make a less racist state, which seems very likely was propagated by, Zionists, but not going to get into that right now, but now they're moving away. Originally, they were a big proponent of this idea, saying that, well, they're trying to replace white people, which to an extent they are. They massively are. You look at the media, it's anti-white. It's okay to be racist against white people, but no other people. The only people you're allowed to criticize are white people. And then mass migration to get rid of the white populations, to demoralize the white people, to get rid of their religion, to get rid of all these things. So now they're moving, literally, they're trying to push themselves away. Oh, we're not part of this conspiracy theory about the great replacement. Well, there we go. There's another right-wing candidate, goes down the drain. We saw this with Maloney as well. We're probably going to see it with Marine Le Pen. We might see it with the AFD. We don't know. But, and Nigel Farage, I think he's pretty good. I think Nigel's pretty good. But, there's a lot of these right-wingers, these mainstream conservatives, which what do? Nothing. They make all these promises, and then once they actually get in power, no, I don't want to do it. By the way, Gert Wilder's massive Zionist too, but maybe that has something to do with it. It does. But so you're looking at all these right-wing people who are these populist nationalist candidates, and they're just the worst. They've become cucks. They've become little bitches, and they can't do anything. So that's the same for Poilievre. It's the same for Trump. The next story I've got is a bunch of funny foreign aid. Yeah, it's very funny that we're wasting taxpayer dollars. A couple more foreign aid developments. So it came out recently that somebody did a little bit of research and found that Canada was spending $20 million of foreign aid to teach Ghanaians, people from Ghana, not to shit on beaches. You can Google this right now. They have these posters funded by UNICEF, funded by the government of Canada, where it literally says, do not defecate on beaches. And it's just a massive platform to teach these uncivilized retards that you shouldn't shit on beaches. These are the people we're importing, ladies and gentlemen. High-skilled, high-value, high IQ immigrants. Then there's other, out of the $6.8 billion that we spent on foreign aid last year, a lot of this money is going to great places. $135 million for modernizing agriculture in Ghana. How does it cost $135 million? Do these people not have the wheel? Do they not have a wheelbarrow? The thing to do agriculture? Put it on an ox and let that pull it. There's your agriculture. Ghana, a massive recipient of foreign aid because they can't do anything for their own country. $150 million for supporting renewable energy in Africa. Why don't you maybe support the oil industry and the extraction of natural resources in Africa so that they become rich first, and then they can become concerned with the climate? Maybe that $150 million would have been better spent building literally oil refineries in the country. Africa, massive oil reserves, massive natural gas reserves, massive coal reserves. If they started exploiting those resources like literally every European country did, like literally every Canada did, like America did, if they started, South America, they started exploiting their natural resources, their hydrocarbons, because it's extremely high energy and they'd make a lot of money from it. They could then use that money to develop renewable energies. But instead, our foreign aid policies is let's give these guys solar panels so that they can end up robbing the solar panels and then, selling the copper for pennies on the dollar. Another example, $65 million for protecting rights and dignity of women and girls in Ethiopia. Ladies and gentlemen, your taxpayer dollars protecting the dignity of girls in Ethiopia. Foreign aid should also be zero, just like immigration. Zero. That's all I want. But no, $6.8 billion. Let's go. Oh, we can't get rid of that. Yeah, we can. We can definitely get rid of it. Okay. That's another needless expense. Imagine $6.8 billion to fix the homeless crisis in Canada. To fix a lot of issues in Canada we could use for $6.8 billion last year. Anyways, the final story of today, is the St. Paul-Toronto by-election. St. Paul, which has been a Liberal stronghold since, I believe, 1988, was the last time the Conservatives won St. Paul, a riding in Toronto, where there was recently a by-election because one of the members of Parliament, I believe, retired. This has been one of the easiest, again, it's a stronghold. It's been the easiest place for a member of Parliament to win the Liberal seat. And tonight, what happened was that people were saying this is a test to show if Justin Trudeau should call an election because this has been a Liberal seat. And what happened? Well, it looked like for most of the night, up to, I believe, even when 90% of the polling stations closed, it looked like the Liberal Party was going to have a slight majority. They were slightly going to win, right? But then at the last moment, the Conservative Party comes out and actually wins the seat. This was a massive, story. It was very interesting to see because, we know the Conservatives were going to get a gain. But it didn't seem like they were going to get that much of a gain. And to win a seat that's been in the heart of Toronto Liberal territory for literally decades. The other parties that were there too, so the Conservative Party gained 16.8% compared to last election, while the Liberals parties lost 8.7%. The NDP party also lost 5.9%. The Green Party lost 3.1%. And the People's Party, which, we made a big, this huge announcement. We're doing a massive rally, we're canvassing door to door to gain support for the People's Party because we're going to get a seat. We lost 2.1%, which, to be fair, I guess is a slightly good sign, is that was the least amount of loss that we saw. But I mean, these don't talk about, they're talking about percentage points in the actual share of percentage, not it was less than, we lost 10%. No, out of 10%, we lost 2%. But yeah, we went down to 0.6% of the vote. We got absolutely blown out of the water by the Green Party people. This is not a good sign. And this is why, again, I have several concerns regarding the party as a whole, the People's Party as a whole, and the need for a rebrand and a refocusing of the policies and a remarketability of our policies. And just overall, we need a better image. But again, that just shows that the Conservatives are seeing a massive wave. And again, I don't think this is a good sign because, like I've said, Pierre Poilievre is not the anti-immigrant candidate that everyone thinks he is. Just because he says he's conservative doesn't mean there are actually less immigrants. Anyways, that's all I have for today. Thank you as usual for listening. And all these statements, again, I want to make a disclaimer. All these statements are for Canada, for Canadians. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next time.